3 on the agenda, and that is public comment. And we did not have anybody sign up for public comment. All of the commenters are going to be in the public hearing on the comp plan, and that will be taken up very shortly. Item number 4, approval of the minutes of the February 12th, 2026 meeting. What is your pleasure? Motion by Supervisor Drabek and seconded by Vice Chair Dickinson. Any discussion on the minutes as presented? Seeing none, we'll proceed to vote. All those in favor of the motion to approve the minutes of the February 12th meeting signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. And I do want to announce that we do have a quorum. We have in person, we have myself, Supervisor Marash, Supervisor Drabek, Supervisor Ritter, Vice Chair Dickinson, Supervisor Boots, Supervisor Robinson, and online we have Supervisor Friffrick, Supervisor Arstead, and Mask were excused from today's meeting. So thank you. We'll move on to operational functions required by statute, ordinance, resolution, or policy. And unless there's objection, I will take item 5B, which is the discussion and possible action by the executive committee to forward to the county board for approval the comprehensive plan and the public hearing on that plan. Is there any objection to moving that out of order? All right, seeing none, I do have a brief discussion. So in opening the public hearing, everyone is please asked to silence your cell phones or any other electronic devices as to not be an interruption to the meeting, and I thank you for your indulgence. The Marathon County Executive Committee is now meeting in a public hearing on the purposes of the following plan: adoption of the Marathon County Comprehensive Plan 2026. I would like to introduce the members of the Executive Committee. Myself, Kurt Gibbs, as the chair. We have with us the vice chair, Chris Dickinson. We also have Matt Boots. We have Randy Fiffrick online. We have Mike Ritter here, Stacy Marash, Supervisor John Robinson, Supervisor Al Drabek. And again, Supervisor Gene Mask and Supervisor Jennifer Arstead are excused. All persons in person or by phone are staff from the Administration's Office, Corporation Council, Conservation Planning and Zoning, and the North Central Wisconsin Regional Planning Commission. The purpose of the public hearing is to hear and to decide on whether to recommend the adoption of the Marathon County 2026 Comprehensive Plan for the purposes of guiding the future policy and decision-making in the county. The committee is interested in hearing all pertinent comments and questions. The hearing will be opened by allowing staff to present the overview of the plan. Then anyone wishing to testify will be sworn in and allowed to give testimony. The executive committee may ask questions of county staff. Witnesses will then be called in the order of those: 1 in favor, 2 opposed, and 3 as interested may appear. It is necessary that we set a reasonable time limit on individual statements on the overall length of the hearing. Each person testifying will
This meeting is being transcribed and summarized.
Each person testifying will be given 3 minutes to speak. Anyone wishing to present oral testimony related to the hearing should approach the microphone, state your name and municipality, and present your testimony related only to the plan so that it becomes part of the official record. Executive committee members and staff will not be answering questions for those giving testimony. We request you avoid repetition. Once the executive committee has heard all of the testimony, the chair will close the hearing, allowing no further testimony. The executive committee then will deliberate and decide in front of the public whether to recommend the adoption of the plan to the Marathon County Board. No further testimony from the public is allowed during the deliberation. However, the committee may question staff for the purposes of clarification. After the decision is made, the committee will proceed to the rest of the meeting agenda. The decision made by the executive committee is a recommendation to the Marathon County Board of Supervisors, who will take the matter up at a future meeting. Contact staff if you have more information regarding the county board process. The executive committee will now hear the request for adoption of the Marathon County Comprehensive Plan 2026. Okay, and now I would like to turn it over to Conservation Planning Staff Director, Lori Miskimmons, who will give a brief overview of the updated plan. And I will swear you in. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you. Proceed.
Thank you. I won't take too much of your time, but because we are having a public hearing, I did want to spend a little bit of time going over what the comprehensive plan is again, and then we'll open it up for testimony because I know there's several people here waiting for a chance to speak to the executive committee. So on page 9 of your packet today, I did provide an overview again of what our comprehensive plan is. We have been working on this for the last year and a half with staff, the standing committees, the executive committee, of course, and then the Northwest Central Regional Planning Commission. This is an update to our 2016 plan. It is a complete update, so it did include updating all the background data, supporting studies, revising the issue statements in every chapter, and reviewing and refining the goals, objectives, and action strategies throughout the plan. Comprehensive plans in Wisconsin are governed by 66-1001, and that gives us, it establishes the required elements that we need to include in our comprehensive plan, including those ones stated in the packet: housing, transportation, utilities and community facilities, agricultural, natural and cultural resources, economic development, intergovernmental cooperation, and implementation. In addition, the statute gives us some additional requirements that include that we should update our plan at least every 10 years, which is why we are doing this update, that we do hold a public hearing prior to adopting, amending, or updating the plan, and that the plan cannot take effect until it is adopted by ordinance. And that's something that's important to mention here, is that we do have an adopted comprehensive plan, and that does remain in place until the county board would make a decision to repeal and replace the comprehensive plan with this draft. So absent you updating your plan, our 2024 plan remains in place. A couple of things I just want to say about the comprehensive plan again is it is a guiding document. It is not considered an enforceable document. It does provide the basis for our strategic plan. It helps direct the administrator and department head work plans, and it is used for the basis of our zoning ordinances and other policy and recommending improvements within the county. One of the things we did as part of this update is we did look at all the goals, objectives, and strategy statements. For the most part, the goals didn't remain largely unchanged. The objectives, as we talked about in previous meetings, we spent a lot of time refining those and making them more clear to reflect the county's role in achieving those objectives. And then we did do a lot of work on the strategies too, to try and bring them into alignment with the new objectives and where we are within the county. Another thing I should mention again is that the comprehensive plan is a living document, which means it can be amended at any time if the county board so chooses. So if you do adopt an update this year but decide next year something has substantially changed and you want to open up the comprehensive plan again, that can happen. We do recommend that you look at it at least every 5 years to determine if you need a substantial update, and then of course the statute says every 10 years you should update it. So as far as public notification goes, throughout the process we have made ongoing updates to the municipalities and kept postings on the comprehensive plan website related to when each committee was taking up the chapters, so that people could come and present comment and speak to those chapters while the standing committees were going through it. We also, in compliance with the statute, made the public hearing notified in the newspaper. We posted it at the county clerk's office, Conservation Planning and Zoning, and distributed it by mail and email to all the towns, villages, and cities within Marathon County, all non-metallic mine operators, the surrounding counties, and other interested parties who have requested notification. And again, that's all guided by statute. So yesterday I did send you the public comment that we have received thus far. We received 2 written-in comments from people online and through email. And we also put a link in that we received comment at ERC so that you could go back and watch those public comments that were given there. A couple of things I did want to say that we took a look at those comments and did try to bring forth some suggestions today, and I'll go to those in a second based on some of the comments that were received. I think in looking at it, you'll notice most of the comments received are related to wind and solar projects and the concern within the county. So I'm going to pivot over to our goals and objectives document. So in looking at the comments we've received on wind and solar, I think that a couple things have come up. One being just what statements are in there related to wind and solar and those objectives. And staff looked at one that was under the infrastructure goal for utilities. And initially in the draft that we had out there, we had actively review and engage in planning when allowed by state law, large energy projects to make sure they match county goals, limit harm to the environment and land use, and protect the interests of local communities. So one suggestion we wanted to bring forth today is that we think that it would make more sense to change that to actively review and regulate when allowed by state law. So because we know that the issue has been that we sometimes don't have the ability to regulate based on what state law tells us right now. But if that should change, then we have this in our comprehensive plan that we have that direction that's what we want to do as a county. So that's a suggestion we're bringing forward today that we would hope that the county board would consider changing in the draft. A couple other things. I know it's been brought up about concerns with wind and solar and impacts to farmland and agriculture and prime soils. There are several places within our goals and objectives where we do talk about the protection of our farmland and the protection of our soil, specifically in Chapter 5. Let me get back to that, hang on. We do have an objective related to promoting sound land use, and under that we have promote infrastructure development that protects natural resources. And then we also have later in the land use chapter, Chapter 9, we have promote the preservation of agricultural land, and we do talk about protection of prime soils in the objectives in here as well. And that's something that staff definitely talked about internally throughout the whole comprehensive plan update, that understanding that maybe state statute does not allow us to do all that we would like to do as a community related to some of the infrastructure development in our county, but we can certainly have strong objectives in there related to protecting our farmland and our prime soil. So we did try and get those into the update, and they have been through the standing committees as well. With that, I think I will turn it over back to you for testimony.
Okay, we will now open it up for public testimony. Again, we are going to take them in order. First, we would take anyone wishing to testify in favor of. Second will be opposed to, and then third will be as interested in. So first I will call on anyone that has signed up for public testimony on the comp plan that wishes to testify in favor of the comp plan. Does any of the individuals wish to testify in favor of the comp plan? Just one call-in user, I would check.
We have a call-in user, area code 7152, and the phone number ends in 22. If you could identify yourself, please, and state if you would like to offer any comment in the public hearing.
Hi, all. This is Caitlin Suginaka, the health officer for Marathon County. And no, I do not have any comment. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
All right, then I will ask a second time, is there anybody wishing to testify in favor of the comprehensive plan rewrite? And I will ask a third time, does anybody wish to testify in favor of the comprehensive plan rewrite? Seeing none, we'll then proceed to anyone wishing to speak who is opposed to the plan in person first. And we do have Cindy Nielsen is first on the list. Cindy, I do have to swear you in. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? So,
Yes, sir.
thank you. 3 minutes is your time.
Okay. My name is Cindy Nelson. I live in Stratford in the town of Eau Plaine. I am currently living in the middle of the farms that have signed up for wind turbines. My house is, there are a lot of other residents there. But as we are contemplating the turbine project, these are the questions that also need to be thought of when everybody is talking about this. So my understanding is that the trucks, when they come to clear out the area to put the base of the turbine in, they're very large, they're very destructive to our roads. Who is going to be repairing the roads? Is it going to be the county or is it going to be the township? From what I can tell, it's going to be very expensive. We have dirt roads. Also, when they're trucking in the parts for the turbines, everything is large. We don't even have normal roads. They're just gravel roads. So to have large trucks on them, I just see a lot of damage that is going to be happening to the roads, and we have 2 highways there. Who is going to take care of those items? How fast are they going to be taken care of? I mean, because already, like I said, we are living on dirt gravel roads. The other thing is, if the turbines ever leak oil, who is going to clean the soil? Who's going to take you're going to have to dig. It's like, I own an automotive repair center. If you have oil leakage in the dirt, the environmental people come in and you have to do a huge process. Who is going to take care of that if you have turbines leaking oil in the soil? Because it just doesn't stay at the top, it leaks down. Also, what about fires? Are the townships all going to update all the fire departments? Because nobody out here is equipped to handle any fires related to the battery storage units or the turbines itself. And they do get struck by lightning.
30
and
seconds.
it does create a huge fire. So who's going to take care of those issues? That everything I'm seeing here is so costly. Unless they're going to pay you, Alliant Energy is going to pay $20 billion to the county or the townships to take care of all these repairs. It just isn't worth it. Also, who's going to clean up the blades? If the turbines break and the blades fall on the ground, is it the farmer's responsibility, the township, the county, Alliant?
Time is up.
I'm done?
Yeah,
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Next, we have signed up Mike Lang. If you'd raise your right hand, and do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. 3 minutes is your time, please.
Mike Lang, I'm from town of McMillan. We are right in the middle of the Hub City Wind Project. We have about 2,000 residents. My big concern is the comp plan with the health and safety of our town community and everybody in the town or the county. Windmill companies test for noise, but they do not test for infrasound, which has been studied all over the world. There's articles pertaining to that and the effects on the human body and what happens. Just recently, a German study came out declaring what, this causes. And it's the same thing as what they went through down in Brown County with the Shirley Wind Project. I don't know if anybody's aware of it, but I'll put out some points here on what happened. It was brought online in 2011. And in 2012, the Board of Health requested an emergency from the state to assist families suffering from the effects of the wind farm. Okay, in 2013, a study of the low frequency noises were completed. In 2014, the County Board of Health declared the Shirley Wind Project a human health hazard, the first that ever did, okay, because of 75 local residents that complained of insomnia, headaches, pressure sensation, dizziness, and nauseousness. In 2015, the director of the Health and Human Services, or the County Board of Health, rescinded her comment on this and said there was nothing in the investigation that attributed to it. But through an open records account, they were able to bring out that she had said many times over that every time she went, near the turbines or by the turbines, she would get massive migraines, and she needed to take preventive Tylenol before she went.
30 seconds.
Which completely, says different of what she was saying. She resigned one day before that came out to the public, okay? They still have lawsuits going on. The last one was in 2023, which of course they didn't win. These windmill companies do not test for infrasound, which is a very low frequency, which causes this. I suggest, and I would like to,
Time.
in the comp plan.
Time. Thank you. Moving on, we have Heidi Pesky. Heidi, raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do, sir.
Thank you. Please, 3 minutes is your time.
I'm Heidi Pesky, Town of McMillan. Health, safety, and prosperity, not just for us humans, but also for our wildlife, our animals, and our beautiful land here in Marathon County. This Hub City Wind Project is between two protected wildlife areas. And so for this comp plan, I would like to know if there's enough details and facts to add the specific language to it to protect these animals. And not only our way of life for health, safety, and prosperity, but for the animals' way of life, since they cannot speak up for themselves. Mead Wildlife Area and McMillan Wildlife Area are protected. They are reserves. They have reserves in them for migratory wildlife. They're classified as sensitive areas. When speaking to Ann Lacey, an International Crane Association for the Eastern Flyway of North America, she stated, attached, please find some publications to help inform proper siting of the wind farm should it go forward. The first two deal with whooping cranes, which are not currently in McMillan Marsh, but they have been in 2019, and we have every hope that they would occupy one day. There was one in the Mead Wildlife just this last year. A wind farm in the vicinity would likely be a detriment to the whooping cranes decided on the marsh as a breeding area if the turbines were too close. This would have a direct impact on the success of this reintroduction and eventual downlisting of the species. Thus, a concern for the whooping crane reintroduction partnership. And then she gives two paperworks done by the U.S. Fish and Wildlife, and they are recent ones, one in 2024, one in 25. This one stated, The conversion of agricultural land and land to solar fields takes away the foraging habitat from the whooping cranes. Additionally, power lines used to transport energy from these fields pose a collision risk to the whooping cranes in flight. Additionally, it's important to note whooping cranes generally avoid these by 5 kilometers. Therefore, recommendations regarding a non-development zone around Goose Pond would likely need to be extended to 18 kilometers, which is 11.18 miles to protect 99% of those in the wind energy development. And there was also a study done by the Goose Pond in Indiana, and they gave 12.56 kilometers. If you do a Google search, you can see that between the two wildlife areas, there's only 7.2 or even 7.5 miles between the two of them. So even if you give a little lenient of 8 miles, there's still not enough room for the siting of these wind turbines between these two protected wildlife areas. And I just want to make sure in this comp plan that you have enough of the detail to protect these, because we need our wildlife areas. It's not for just tourism. It's not just for watching the wildlife. It's not just for people for the funds that you get for the hunting, which are a lot of them in Marathon County, but
30
it is
seconds.
for all of us to enjoy. Did you say I was done?
Pardon me? No, you still have 20 seconds.
Oh,
I'm sorry.
okay, I'm
I
sorry.
was just announcing you had 30 seconds.
Our community boasts many species of birds and is habitat for many species of wildlife, both year-round and seasonal. There's experts that concluded that industrial wind turbines kill a large quantity of birds. I am participating in the Eagle Watch program, and I do watch one of the eagle nests, so it is in our area, and there are several others in our area.
Now your time is up.
Now it's time up. Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on, we have next Wendy Rogalski. Wendy, do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. 3 minutes is your time.
Thank you. Marathon County strives to be the healthiest, safest, and most prosperous county. Because of this, it stands to reason that our comprehensive plan should reflect that mission by protecting our land, our communities, and those of us who live here. The people in this room today represent thousands of residents across this county who cannot all be here at 3 o'clock on a Thursday afternoon, but who do care deeply about what happens next. Back in December, some of your residents requested changes be made to the comprehensive plan draft. Those requests were given to a supervisor to pass on to the appropriate people. Unfortunately, they were largely dismissed, and that is why I'm here today. This plan will guide our county planning and zoning for years. It should not move forward without addressing the concerns of the people it's supposed to represent. In its current draft form, this plan avoids stating something that is obvious to everyone in this room. Utility-scale wind, solar, and battery storage are industrial developments. These are not small farm projects. They're massive industrial facilities that permanently change our landscapes. Industrial uses belong in areas planned for industrial development, not on productive ag land. This plan should also acknowledge that large energy facilities alter the character of our rural communities, they fragment farmland, and they create long-term impacts when multiple projects, like we're seeing in this county, are proposed in the same region. We also need to see language protecting our natural resources, our water quality, and our county infrastructure when these types of projects are proposed. Just as important, this plan should recognize the importance of local control, which would build on the recently adopted resolution requesting the county's association to lobby on our behalf for that control. I would specifically like to see language stating, the county recognizes the importance of local decision-making and supports the authority of its towns, cities, and villages to determine appropriate locations for utility-scale energy facilities. Your residents aren't asking for anything extreme. We're asking for common-sense protections for our farmland and rural communities and the ability for our local governments to make decisions for their communities. And don't tell me our hands are tied. There are strategic ways to implement these things, and it begins with this comprehensive plan. This plan is supposed to represent the future of Marathon County. So the question before you today is simple. Will that future protect our farmland and rural communities, or will it industrialize them? I'm asking you to please strengthen this plan before moving it forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Christine Seehafer. Good afternoon. Can you raise your right hand? Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Please, the time is yours, 3 minutes.
Okay, I haven't a whole lot to say. I am concerned, I'm as a dairy farmer, I'm very concerned about these big wind turbines coming into our territory. The comp plan is so easily to be disregarded. You talk about trying to preserve our farmland, but it's so easy. Farmland preservation gets changed just like that. It just has to be rezoned. And then you can put the turbines up. That's what's happening in our township of McMillan. We have dairy cattle. I'm very concerned about the stray voltage. The more of these wind turbines that are coming up next door to us. Have a sister who lived through stray voltage. It's devastating to the humans, not just the animals. The electrical storms we have in this territory are bad. From the Nordics X wind turbine manufacturer, the safety manual says you should stay 3,280 feet away from the turbines during a lightning storm, in addition to 1 hour after that. So the farmland the comp plan, it would really be nice to have something in there, if they're gonna go ahead with this, if you wanna preserve farmland, there should be something in there to tell them to remove all the cement, not just 4 feet, all the cement that they put 20 feet in the ground, all the cables, because that's where the stray voltage is running through. And that would really help a lot. I guess that's all I have to say.
Thank you. Next, we have David Swenson.
With all the previous things and agree with and support their position.
All right, thank you, David. Next, we have Rodney Bauer. Rodney, do you raise your right hand? Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. 3 minutes are yours, please.
I also feel at this time that this plan does not strong enough on its wording to help protect us from the windmills, the battery storage, and the data centers that are probably coming to this community. That's all I have for right now.
Thank you. And next we have Becky Tykrow. Becky, please. Becky, would you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Absolutely.
Thank you. 3 minutes is yours.
So I'm here to address the board again, and I know this meeting is gathered for direct, specific conversation about the comprehensive plan. And speaking with some people after the meeting last week, I understand this is a non-binding, and I appreciate you clarifying that. This is a non-binding, it's not a rule, it's not a law, but it's more of like, I was told, like a mission statement. It's what we stand behind. I know this comp plan can be amended at any point, as you referenced, but it's definitely something that all the residents of Marathon County can go online and look it up and learn a little bit about. So I'm saying the language is extremely ambiguous and it's weak, and I've been asking for a task force. What I'm looking for from the county board is more communication with the public. That's what I'm asking the board to do a better job. Just so that there's like a solidified, here are the facts, here's what we know, and here's what we're allowed to do. So I'm asking for better communication, and I'm asking for more specifics. I echo what all of my predecessor speakers have said. There should be more specifics rather than just, I think the wording was, the county will not engage, but help regulate when allowed by the state. Well, there are some bills that are possibly being moved through, and we're kind of excited about that. I understand the Public Service Commission trumps our board, and they get to make the decisions. It blows my mind why I can't build a little shed close to my house without the county's permission, but a factory energy farm can go right over my property line and take over the entire block. I don't understand, there's such a duplicity, but I understand the board's hands are tied by the Public Service Commission. But when that local control, if and when, and I hope, can be returned to the counties and the towns, I asked that there would have been a task force in place ready for that change. So it's an optimistic ask, but I am asking for it. I'm asking for the county to spend some of its time, possibly money and resources, on doing more education on. If you think there's benefits to this for the county, inform us. And if there's drawbacks, we've been trying to bring all the drawbacks. To me, I see only drawbacks. This is subsidy money. Developers are getting, it's a cash grab for developers.
30 seconds.
So task force is my main ask, better language. And then I look forward to the JDA education next week. I want to learn about that. But that's what I'm saying. Can we think creatively? Are there other angles we can do here? Regulating, I mean, I can't drive my husband's dump truck with a load of sand for construction on my property until those road limits are off. I'm going to guess that these developers are going to get special, above the rules, PSC qualified, non-regulation. So thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else wishing to speak opposed to the comp plan adoption? Anyone online? Could you give me your name and your municipality, please?
Yeah, and sorry, I didn't sign up. Betty, B-E-T-T-E, last name Ahrens, A-R-E-N-D-S, Town of Easton.
Betty, can I have you raise your hand and
Yes.
Swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you. 3 minutes is your time.
All right. Talking about wind and solar again and wanting to have good language in the comp plan. We're one of the many properties in the town of Easton that could have a large solar industrial complex next to us. And I was here at a county board meeting not too long ago talking about the fact that we are below a massive piece of land that will go down onto our watershed. They remove the topsoil, they use chemicals on the land. It'll come into our watershed and into our groundwater. And already with the ginseng farm that is there, we are getting pesticides in our water. Property values, as I've been researching this, whether you're next to a wind farm or a solar farm, are dropping by 20 to 40% and sometimes higher than that. That's a major concern for me and for others in Marathon County who are experiencing this. And I think at the last meeting I commented, hey, maybe our property taxes will go down by that much then if our home values drop. There's nothing we can do with that. We have built up our home to pass it on to our children, or at least the proceeds from selling it someday, and we hope to have that. The battery storage units that they talked about with the lithium ion storage, they're massive. They're massive, and they've been finding out now that they also leak acid and toxic waste into the ground. That's another concern for myself. And because we're on a wetland, we also have wildlife that like to come there. And I think this is going to be a major detriment. So in this comprehensive plan, we need language that is going to protect the homeowners, the landowners. And we do, and this is not up to you, but we do hope to have local control and local say in this. There's so much more I could say, but I can't think of it right now. Thank you.
Thank you. So I'll ask again, is there anybody else that wishes to speak opposed to the comprehensive plan? I will ask a third time, is anybody wishing to speak opposed to the adoption of the comprehensive plan as a rewrite? All right, we'll move on to, is anybody wishing to speak as interested in the comp plan? Is there anybody that wishes to speak as interested in the comp plan? And one last time, is there anybody interested in speaking as interested in the comprehensive plan? All right, if no one else wishes to testify in regarding of this plan, I now declare the public hearing on the adoption of the Marathon County Comprehensive Plan 2026 closed. The committee will now deliberate on the plan and make its recommendations to the county board. So we'll move on to the discussion. Any discussion? Supervisor Boots, please.
I'm going to be very boring and long-winded. But, so I guess I'm going to give a little background for both the audience here today and then probably some board members as well. So my background is I'm an electrician. So I've actually been involved in photovoltaic and wind energy back in the day when it first started coming out. Currently attending the Rural Energy Academy, which some other supervisors and some of our staff is doing. I'm also your NACO delegate, which is National Counties Association, where I am the part of the Ag Standing Committee. So what this has been discussed at length at that committee level. And the first thing I'd like to start by saying is, first of all, solar and wind is very, very different when you look at how it affects and the type of land use you can do with it. That's number one. I will also start by saying some other things. I'm going to be all over the place here, so I apologize. These were notes really last minute. But so under state statute, our 209 Wisconsin Act 40, local governments cannot place restrictions on wind energy systems that are more stringent than those put on by the Public Service Commission. That being said, Senate Bill 3 was put out to the state, and I'll bring that up. I won't get into detail about basically what the Senate bill was doing was requiring local approval for certain wind and solar projects under Public Service Commission approval. I can also say, I'm not going to bore you, you can look this all up online, just like all of us can. Just a brief note, despite the delay in bringing the legislation to the State Senate Committee, State Senator Julian Bradley, Republican of New Berlin, said now is the time to have a conversation about regulating renewable energy, regardless of what the other House did or did not do, because the Assembly did not do anything with it. We are still going to take lead on this to ensure that the voices are heard and that all conversations begin, Bradley said. Senate Bill 3 would require anyone seeking permits from the Public Service Commission for wind or solar powers to get first approval from local governing bodies. Eric Bacon, and this may be boring, but I'm just telling you this is the latest and greatest as of a day ago. Eric Bacon from Mineral Point at the state capitol to testify in favor of the bill. He said he wants local governments to have say in projects that could significantly impact their communities. I feel the best form of government is that of our own, and that further it gets less to do with you, Bacon said. State Rep Travis Tranel, Cuba City, authored the State Assembly version of the bill. He said he's focused on preserving farmland that wind and solar projects take up, along with finding better methods for energy production. The amount of power that we're going to need in the state of Wisconsin is just going to astronomically increase over the coming decades, Tranel said. You're literally not going to be able to produce enough power supply simply through wind and solar. Tranel said he's spoken with utilities about moving forward nuclear energy options. Clean energy advocates like Madison resident Don Ferber would rather see the state encourage renewable methods instead of restricting them. The energy we use to be is not very clean, but affordable, and that's been the key issue, Ferber said. Solar and wind are the most affordable forms of energy that we have right now to produce. Jennifer Genrich from Wisconsin Conservation Voters asked lawmakers to go back to the drawing board and find different solutions for powering Wisconsin. We do need to have large-scale energy conservation in this state, but the bill limits our options and is a good proposal, and we therefore ask for you to oppose it. More than 20 different organizations are registered against the bill, which need to be passed by the Senate committee before it can be scheduled for a full vote. Its path to the governor's desk is uncertain after the state assembly adjourned last month, and the state senate is expected to meet for its final floor session next weekend. So that said, again, I apologize in advance. The legislators, what I'm reading, are both, whether you're right or left, cannot come to a consensus on how much control municipalities should have. With that said, until a consensus is achieved, if any at all, our assemblymen didn't even see the act changing or anything happening in the near future. He doesn't see this changing because there's not a consensus, whether you're left, right, up, down, doesn't matter. There's not a consensus right now when it comes to wind and solar. All right, that being said, I'm gonna go into some more stats. This is probably where I would say that Becky talked about better communication task force. I think we're getting there. We're still getting to that point. That being said, right now, Mount Pleasant and Port Washington are building data centers going to require 3.9 gigawatts of power. That exceeds the energy consumption of all households in the state of Wisconsin. State needs right now, current state, 15 gigawatts. Within 5 years, it's going to have a need of 17.1 gigawatts. The reason being, for the most part, because of the data centers that are being built throughout the state for AI. It's for AI. Marathon has a generation capability, just to put some of these numbers to paper, of 557 megawatts, Marathon County. So current state, the way we are right now, the only thing, there's three things that have been discussed by Board Chair Gibbs and several other people. We have three options as a county board right now. Number one, you do nothing, see what happens. Number two, we work a community, basically public engagement. We take do an agreement, an agreement with the people doing this. Now in this agreement, and this is where it kind of touches on these things. Well, let me back up. The third option would be litigation. Litigation's a tough road, seeing we're going against the state of Wisconsin as a municipality. Right now, nobody has won those cases if it's over 100 megawatts, just so you're aware. Some of the things that you can put in this agreement, just some of the things. Water demand, PILT, basically payment in lieu of taxes, not to the state, but to the local municipality. Ecological assessments, suitability analysis of available land, hold harmless agreements, economic development agreements, future land use agreements, small business agreements, local hiring and wiring for install, fees for new developments, workforce housing, because the housing is an issue on these type of projects. County staffing, are we going to have more staffing because of this? We are. Something we learned today, public relations rep for the county. We can demand that we have a public relations rep for the county that they would have to pay for, they would have to do with these farms, with these wind farms. Code enforcement, public lands inventory, community or chamber, there's several things you can put in these agreements. Personally, I don't think any of this stuff is going away. I can say that I think that our government has done a poor job. We're shutting down coal, we're shutting down gas, and then we're starting up wind and solar, but we're not gonna have enough energy just by the numbers we're seeing within the next 5 years. I foresee us firing things back up like coal and gas until I know people don't wanna hear that, but to meet the demand, and we probably don't have the backbone right now under distribution systems. I can tell you at the Ag Committee for NACO, the biggest thing we've been discussing is land use. So if you have a farmer, that's a dairy farmer in the state of Wisconsin, and he's an active dairy farmer, and he's, okay, to supplement his income, he's doing crop farming. So if you're gonna do a crop farm, lease your land out, you're gonna get about anywhere, I'm just throwing out numbers, $80 to $150 an acre if you're corn, soybean, things like that. The numbers that are being given to these landowners is $1,500 an acre, up to $1,500 an acre for wind and solar on a 30-year contract, guaranteed money. Most people are gonna take that money and run. So this is where I feel if the government is going to put this on us where we don't get to make the decisions, there has to be something. Even if we put this in our plan right now, comp plan, saying we're going to do this and we're going to do that, we want this, Public Service Commission is going to trump us. It's a wish list. The government has to say these are lands that we have to protect as ag. We've discussed this at length at NACO, and there's some heated discussions in the ag standing committee because farmers like, we need food, we need this, we need that. We also need energy. There has to be some plan, and people are just going right now, I'm telling you in other states, they're going where the money is. If I can get $1,500 an acre, I'm taking the $1,500 an acre. So there's a lot to this. As far as the education piece, it's huge. It's a big thing. And I can honestly say from the discussions I've had with people down a couple weeks ago in Washington, D.C., we're not behind the 8 ball yet. We're not, because we still have some time, thank God. We do have some time, but a lot has to be done, and we're not being helped by the state at this point. They're not going to do something. They see the power concerns. They really do. They see the power concerns. They know it's coming. And like I said, I mean, the part that really blew my mind is the amount of wattage these data centers are taking. It's insane. I mean, just that one is going to draw 1.2 million. It's Milwaukee County, and it's a square mile building for these data centers. So sorry I was long-winded, but I kind of wanted to get this out there. Just starting this process, I don't know. I mean, this is a public hearing on the comp plan. The comp plan's not going to fix this problem. We can put it in there, and again, we can always amend it to add things. I think there's going to be some good discussion on what we could add to it right now. Is it going to have any teeth? No, but it'll be a good guide, and we can always change that. So I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Vice Chair Dickinson, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I want to thank all the people who came and spoke. I think the vast majority of you I represent in some way or another, and I've been to your meetings and spoken to other supervisors, and I appreciate the townships for what they've been trying to do for years. I don't like that, well, you know, we passed the resolution. It was a 27-7 vote or 30-4, however we want to look at it, to at least state that we feel like we need more local control, both for you and for us. So that was a good thing to see, that I think our board is unified enough on the issue that we recognize the problem. I do think that this current comprehensive plan does address that with better language than we had before, to allow, although ambiguous, the plan kind of has to be ambiguous because we have to balance what the current law is, but also put in kind of our overarching mentality of where we should be going. And so your comments kind of get to that point. And Supervisor Boots, the same way. We're trying to get to this place of how do we quantify in the words and qualify where we are. So I had submitted some ideas to Lori and to Administrator Leonard about just a few changes that I think kind of get to that point. I'll just mention them because we had spoken about whether this is the place to make specific changes. Really, it's about having the commentary and then at the full board, like we do with our budget, to make the changes at the full board meeting. I think that's, unless you have a different viewpoint, but that.
Administrator Leonard, please.
Thanks. I appreciate that. I'm just making it up. I don't know which process you want, but it strikes me that the conversation you're going to have here will probably be echoed by a number of members at the full board, so it may be good to have
Discussion
everyone involved in that. So again, that was my thought process, similar to the budget, that the board published a a document, the comp plan draft as it existed. There are areas, as Lori referenced, that we had some public comments, and I know Supervisor Drabeck submitted some language that there were some really nicely thought through additions. Similar to Vice Chair Dickinson just offered today some language that, again, I think fits very nicely. My sense, and you can do differently, you can amend it here if you want, but my sense was that the full board might benefit from the discussion and a package of thoughtful suggested edits, similar to how your budget process goes with the conversation at the full board. A committee, perhaps executive, because you do have another executive special meeting scheduled before the voting meeting, could weigh in on those and put that together. But again, in all candor, I'm just making up that process because it's worked well for your budget. But thank you, Vice Chair.
Thank you. So, for example, there's a statement in there about livability. And so I asked, what are these 6 livability principles? There's a little chart in there. Well, it turns out this is from a 2009 federal agency partnership that stated these ideals. It would probably be my recommendation that we remove that section completely, because if it's 2009, we're already 2026, and we don't need to be tied to some of that language, because really it just kind of mirrors the language we have. Moving on then, I do think that there are areas of opportunity, like on page 84, to talk about requests for greater local control in these issues has been increasing and is something the county shall be mindful of. So statements about local control and about the issue that it is a growing issue in our state, that we see other counties and we see at the WCA conference, they're talking about that. In addition, in page 88, where it talks about prime soils for agricultural and forests, stating in there that there are environmental and agricultural consequences to this, that you just don't state that these facilities, so the statement is what's in there now, these facilities are recognized as essential for meeting state and local goals for clean energy, reducing carbon emissions, and diversifying energy sources. Well, that could be written to say these facilities may meet state and local goals for clean energy, reduce carbon emissions, and diversify energy. So may, as opposed to stating unequivocally that that is, because when you state that, you're saying that then you want to support that. But you can also put in there they can compete with, as is in their land, and have environmental and agricultural consequences. So just recognizing that there's 2 sides to the coin, I think, is what a lot of people are stating. And then in addition to that, the word renewable, I think it has a connotation that starts to put people at odds. Instead of stating like a renewable energy throughout our comp plan, we can talk about alternatives, or we can talk about a variety of energy sources. Because when you state a variety of energy sources, it does open you up to the idea of nuclear or something else that would come up, which doesn't tie us into a renewable energy, because I think we all can agree renewable energy has this idea of like this beautiful thing that's going to make all of our energy problems go away and save the world. And that is simply not true. Renewable energy, as stated, these kinds of things use a lot of energy to continue that, to develop energy, right? So those are a couple of the changes that I will submit more clearly as we move forward. And whether we want to make a recommendation for those things or if we just kind of leave it at there, either way. A couple other things to state. There is nothing that I saw, and please correct me if I'm wrong, about data centers and battery storage in the comp plan. I think that is something we need to put in here. I think we need to identify right now, because this is a 10-year document, it's right at our doorstep. I believe that there was mention that perhaps there's a data center coming into the county. We're not at the point of battery storage, but the amount of energy and resources those buildings use has to be, we have to set something now in that regard. And it's easy to say, well, you could have brought this up 6 months ago and all that. Well, I just went to the WCA conference, the legislative conference a month ago, and there was presentations on that, and you start learning how much energy AI uses. And you tell people and they're like, what? So a simple Google search uses, 1 bit of energy. You do an AI search, it can use 10 times to 30 times to 50 times the amount of energy just for that one search. And now you start compounding that, and you think about all the schools who are looking at using that, and all the businesses, people at work. Hey, I used Copilot today, as if it's some great thing. Well, good for you, but you could have done it yourself, but we won't get too much into that. But looking at the data centers and storage, and yes, Administrator Leonard, I'll take a peek, but and I'll look away. And then you mentioned too, the amount of energy that is required, the energy needs. Well, if you put a moratorium on data centers and battery storage, if we go that route potentially as a county, then at least it allows us to have some time to figure out, well, how much energy do we actually need? Maybe we don't need the same amount of energy as they need in Milwaukee County, right? So it at least allows you to put that in the comp plan so you start having those conversations. I don't know if we need a section about what our stance is on certain things. I think you can keep it in there ambiguous. I will say when it comes to like JDAs, like joint development agreements, I have a lot of trepidation when it comes to that. We were in that meeting today. I had missed the other 2 rural energy ones, and I believe it was mentioned by one of the counties that after 10 years or 15 years, they're now in litigation about not following that, and people aren't getting their payments. So that concerns me, because it seems to me if we do engage in one of those, utility company might just say, we're going to back out. We don't really care how much money it costs us or whatever. So those are those kinds of things. And the last thing, we have there's a comment about land use and property rights and all that. I appreciate the people who want to make money off of that. It isn't for the comprehensive plan. If you want to make money on your land, I get it. I also understand there's certain things I can't do at my house right now in order to do a similar thing without having to get permits and licenses and such. And when it comes to these things, and this is the state battle, and hopefully the state will really recognize this, our local state representatives as well, and our governor, that when you put up these industrial energy facilities, whatever you want to call them, it impacts everybody in that area. They're too close, they're too big, they're too noisy. There's some videos of like the data centers and the amount of noise that comes off of those that you just don't get away with, hey, I'm going to make $1,500 an acre for me and just get away with that. I think that's a really unfortunate circumstance of this. So I'll make sure that I detail these more and maybe some of the recommendations from others and make sure that I get it to everyone as we move forward. Thank you.
Okay, other discussion? Supervisor Robinson, please.
Thank you. I just want to try to put the comp plan in perspective of what do we do with it. We have the comprehensive plan, which is sort of that vision, long-term view of where the county is. We then develop a 3 to a 5 year strategic plan that gets in what we actually want to try to implement. And while we have the vision statement, it really doesn't drive a lot of action. It's at the strategic plan level that we begin to commit the resources necessary to implement the policies. And from that strategic plan, we use that to drive the administrator's work plan that drives the day-to-day activities where we spend our money and our resources to implement it. So it needs to be put in the context of what are we committing? One's a vision statement, one gets into these are our priorities, and the final one is these are where our resources are going. And this is not that resource commitment plan, but I wanted to pick up on some of the discussion by Supervisors Boots and Dickinson relative to the information that we obtained at the Wisconsin County Association Legislative Conference. Matt Chase, who's the Executive Director for the National Association of Counties, was there, and he gave an overview of AI and picking up on, he says that ChatGPT takes 50 50 times more the power of a normal search. In data centers have really resulted in a shift of cost to ratepayers. In Virginia, there's 300 to 400 data centers, and utility costs have gone up 30%. There's $3 trillion being invested in data centers over the last 2 years across the country. The White House has issued an executive order saying that data centers, power lines, mining of resources are part of the national security and are not subject to local zoning. So we're talking about things that are happening at the local, state, and now we need to factor in where is the federal government, and that's something that we need to be aware of. But Matt also talked about global competition. While we may not want data centers, China's developing data centers, and the rest of the world is developing it from a competitive perspective. We need to be prepared to address that issue of how do we get our information, what's the commitment to it. But I'm not adverse to looking at language and tweaking this, but I think if we start getting into the specifics, we've sort of jumped ahead of the comprehensive plan, and we need to look at it. What does the comprehensive plan say? Where do we put that into the strategic plan? And then how do we fit that into the administrator's work plan going forward?
Okay, other discussion? Other discussion. Supervisor Booth, please.
To Supervisor Robinson, so it is being seen at the national level. So at the national level, just so some of the things we talked about at NACO is between 2005 and 2025, our electrical grid has been pretty much flat. The people we had talked to at NACO are basically telling us that by 2030, the need for power is going to be 25% more than it is current state. That's big. That's big enough where we don't have the infrastructure to support it, nor do we have the generation to get that type of power, which is why you're seeing the federal government and the state government saying, we're not going to put more restrictions on because we need the power. I get what everybody's dealing with, because the number one thing you hear at NACO is, the saying is, not in my backyard. That's the number one saying. I don't want wind in my backyard. I understand that. I definitely don't want solar in my backyard. But nobody wants a nuke plant in their backyard either. So, I mean, these are the conversations you're going to have, and that's why I was talking about earlier, when it comes to consensus at the state level, you're seeing people saying, don't tell me what to do on my land, but then you have people saying, well, don't do stuff on my land only if it kind of suits me. So you see that argument, like I can make arguments for and against wind, solar all day long. I will say that I consider wind and solar not a renewable energy, but a alternate energy, because you still need the oil to do the things you need for the wind and solar. It is what it is. I'll reiterate, I agree with John that, maybe not so much in the comprehensive plan, but some of these little tweaks that we're discussing, I don't think are a big deal. But I think we have to have the conversations with our legislators, don't take our really good ag land. That's my main concern, because we're an agricultural community. So is the state of Wisconsin, always has been. And you're seeing these things play out across the country. The fights between the farmers and the people coming to get the power, but we need the power too. Everybody in this room uses AI when they look on their phone. And that's what's driving this. Turn it off. You turned it off? Good. So I'm speaking too much on this, but I just wanted to point that out, that if there's a supply, if there's a demand, there's going to be a supply, and that's the way it's always been driven. And there's going to be a demand, and they're not going to not do anything about it. They're going to push this.
Other discussion? I want to address a couple of concerns that the public, and first I want to thank each and every one of you that came in and spoke, and even if you didn't come and speak, I appreciate your willingness to come and listen to the discussions. So some of the concerns that were raised by the individuals that addressed the committee, who's going to repair the roads, environmental cleanup, fire suppression or emergency response, health and safety concerns, decommissioning concerns, in property values. You know, I don't know that those themselves are specific to the comprehensive plan or are items that would be addressed in the comprehensive plan, but they are something that could be potentially addressed in a joint developers agreement. I don't know that we have, if we put in statute something or we put in ordinance in something that requires road repair, you know, we could get into a lot of litigation with a developer at a future point if we don't have something agreed to prior to. So my take on it is I hear all of the concerns that the public has brought forward, and I agree that those concerns need to be addressed. I don't believe that they're proper to address those in our comprehensive plan, but I do think that there is an opportunity to at least address them to the best that we can under the guidelines that we have and the restrictions that the state legislature has put upon us. Now, we can advocate for changing those regulations that are over us that the state has taken. However, we also understand that again, as Supervisor Boots commented, there's three approaches. We can sit back and do nothing and be, as the old saying goes, table fare. We're on the menu and do nothing. We can potentially have a negotiated agreement. There is concerns. There's positives and negatives with those agreements. There's no question. But the other is litigation. And I think the one thing that I would emphasize is I was at a Wisconsin Counties Association Board of Directors meeting, and we had a presentation by one of the attorneys from Atollas Law, and they mentioned that when PSC had issued the CPCNs for 30 projects in the state, that litigation to change those or litigation to stop those plans were 0 and 30. So we can spend money and litigate and potentially postpone those, but those resources eventually are coming from the taxpayers here. And the result has not been positive in stopping any of those projects once the Public Service Commission has issued those CPCNs. But again, I really do want to thank each and every one of you for presenting your concerns. But I really think some of these changes that are being offered by the Vice Chair is absolutely something that could be essential in putting into our comp plan. But some of the other concerns that were brought up by the residents, I don't know that they need to be addressed in the comp plan, but I do believe that there's something that should be addressed. Was that other discussion from the Executive Committee? Vice Chair Dickinson, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was just going to say there's actually a fourth option, and the fourth option is to advocate for your county for change. That's the direction. And if you think about 3 with litigation, there's different ways to approach that. And I'll just make the statement that oftentimes things significantly change when there's litigation. Lawsuits and courts make rulings that change things. And this is happening in a lot of areas. So I make the statement because I am always cognizant of the fact of litigation. But in my 15 years on school board and my 6 years on county, here's what I do know. Whenever there is even the hint at litigation, the comments come out from leadership in many ways, we don't want to go there. And the lawyers say, we don't want to go there. But there is effectual things that happen with lawsuits because there are different rulings. Lawyer A might see it from this perspective. Lawyer B sees it from that perspective. And lawyer A, who said, hey, don't do that, actually loses because lawyer B was smarter and knew how to put together a better argument. So I'm not saying we need to go to litigation. Let's just be careful on that. But my mindset isn't, well, we can't do anything because then nothing gets done. So that's where I think that we as a board can really place good energy, pun intended, to kind of make positive change and work to that effect. And that's where the resolution really was addressing that we as a board say to the state, say to all the other counties, our governor, et cetera, this has to change. And so at least that's kind of where I'm at with that. Thank you.
Other discussion? Other discussion? Again, we are looking for a recommendation to adopt the Marathon County Comprehensive Plan, yet moving it to the county board for future discussion and possible changes. Again, we're still in the discussion. What is your pleasure? Any discussion? Supervisor Robinson, please.
Clarification, didn't we, in essence, move it to the county board as a result of our action a month ago? Already?
Everyone's looking at me, but I'm looking at Brian. I think your resolution, we'll have to take a look at the language from last meeting. My recollection was that it was moved forward to the county board following a public hearing with potential amendments. So I guess we're at the, what do you want to do? I understand there are several areas that were suggested for amendments, including, I know the vice chair had submitted some and Supervisor Drabeck submitted some, and Lori referenced some that staff, based on the public comments that came in prior to the public hearing, had put together. My thought is it would be good to create a forum for the consideration of those, whether, again, that's at the full board. Probably, again, from my perspective, you're a group of 38. This is a great conversation, but certainly not all 38 were able to participate in it. So I don't know, Brian, do you have a sense of, from the previous action that the committee took, whether that was sufficient to move it to the full board?
The only thing I would say is that it may be good here, after hearing the public comments, that maybe somebody makes a motion to ratify that decision from the last meeting and move it to the county board. I don't think you need a whole new resolution, but it may be good just to have a motion that says we still concur with that opinion.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, Supervisor Boots with a motion. And Supervisor Robinson with the second. Any discussion? And that is just a ratification of moving to the full board, the comments that we received today and the public comments that were received, to move those to the full board for its consideration at the educational meeting.
Yeah, I was just going to say, as long as it had the amendment, like all that's going to be pushed through. Okay.
Correct. Yep. Any further discussion on the motion? Any further discussion on the motion? All right, seeing none, all those in favor of that motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried and is unanimous. Again, thank you, everyone. Thank you for all the public that provided comment. And now we will go back to item 5A1, a discussion on the WCA Legislative Conference, and are there areas for further review by this committee? I open it up for discussion. Several of us were there at the WCA Ledge Conference, including myself. Again, this was a legislative conference that provided, a little bit of background on what has taken place during this legislative session by our legislature. Some of those highlights was one of the main things that WCA advocated on behalf of was additional court funding. That was their number one ask because it affects every county in the state. And so their initial ask when the state legislature started debating the budget back last year was an ask of $70 million additional revenue to be shared by all 70 counties, because the judicial system is a it is a joint system. It's a state system and a county system that is supported by both. I think one of the things that WCA was presenting was that instead of being a 50-50 partnership, the counties have been contributing a much greater percentage in resources to provide that system. And so they were asking to get to a better, closer to a 50-50 partnership with a $70 million ask. Early in the budget, the state legislature made a general statement that there was going to be no new general purpose revenue provided to any potential additional programs. At some point during the discussion on the budget, the legislature softened and did provide through the budget an additional $10 million for court funding throughout the state. That was a small win, I think, but a significant win when looking at all of the requests that were presented. But that wasn't the end of it. I think the state legislature and WCA, in its advocacy, moved forward a proposal to change some of the fees that are imposed by our legal system and increase those fees. Currently, I think, and don't quote me on these percentages, but roughly 95% of the fees, fines, and forfeitures go to the state, and the state keeps, the county gets the 5%. What now is going to, the proposed legislation would change and increase some fees, and the amount of increase the fees that are going to be, or proposed in this legislation, would be shared with the counties. 95% would go to the counties and 5% would go to the state. If that legislation gets passed, which it's already passed, bipartisan support from the Assembly and the Senate is at the governor's desk, would increase the funding to the counties by $17 million estimated a year. And so that was a significant win. There was also other discussions, one about some legislation that is still in the process. As we know, when H.R. 1, or the One Big Beautiful Bill, was passed, there was some significant changes to funding for SNAP benefits. And the state of Wisconsin is one of 10 states that administer SNAP directly through the county. And that change was going to increase the cost of administration. Currently, 75% of that cost is bore it's 50-50. 50% of the administration cost is bore by the federal government, and 50% is bore by the administrating municipality, or in this case, the county. The One Big Beautiful Bill shifted that from 25% from the federal to 75% from the county. And along with that, they increased a potential penalty that would be imposed if our error rate in those applications exceeds 5%. Historically, the state has done a very good job as far as administering that program. We've had an error rate below 5%, and so, but with these additional requirements as far as certification for eligibility, that potential without additional resources is going to be significant and potentially have impacts on our error rate, which would impose an additional cost. So the state legislature and WCA and DHS has asked the state for significant increase in funding to offset some of those additional costs. And the state assembly has passed that, and the state senate, I believe, is be taking that bill up next week. Then if that passes, it will go to the governor for his consideration. So that's just a few of the items that were discussed at the WCA Legislative Conference. I'd open it up to any additional. We also had Vice Chair Dickinson at the Legislative Conference. Supervisor Robinson was there, as was Administrator Leonard and our deputy administrator was also there. So I'd open it up for any additional comments and additional potential discussion as it relates to the agenda item. Vice Chair Dickinson, please.
Yeah, the only comment I had is kind of what I was saying before about, the AI discussion and the amount of energy, the data centers, the BESS, battery storage. I thought that was very helpful information. And I overall, it was nice to be down there with other supervisors, other persons within our county, because I think that's a very important thing for us to be doing so that we can learn to work together better and have these meetings kind of be more collaborative. Sometimes you got to get outside of the office to make that happen. And I just mentioned that is something that the Rules Review Committee is looking at. So thank you.
Supervisor Robinson next, please.
Thank you. I'm going to try to focus on some things that we may be able to work on, but there was a lot of discussion in various sessions relative to housing affordability, and Kevin Desboy from Forward Analytics gave a presentation on just the increase in the consumer price index and average household income over the last 10 years or 14 years. And CPI went up 82%, household income went up 83%, but housing costs went up between 120 and 150%. And the average age at which a first-time home buyer buys a home was up 6 or 8 years, but because of the affordability issue. And there were some discussions about some of the things that we could look at, including zoning codes versus, looking at our codes versus county development plans and lot size and, the issues of accessory buildings on lots. But there probably are some things from a zoning perspective that we could look at. From the executive committee level, there was a lot of discussion about how do we create standing with legislators, and Sheboygan County as a monthly meeting with their legislators. NACO just had set up a program where they invite staff from the federal legislators' offices to go on tours and actually look at things. We might want to consider doing a tour. I know Jim Griesbach did that when we had the last round of highway funding and, Just Fix It campaign. Maybe something we want to do. But WCA is also, as part of the remodel, putting a studio in there because of the changing dynamics of how you communicate. There aren't many local papers anymore, so they need to change the social media. Are there some opportunities for us to look at that concept to get things out on social media and, with that, create testimonials from both the board, the administration, and the public relative to it? But it's something that we may want to look forward to because I had a conversation with someone this morning, and they were just searching for, where do you get your local news? And it's really hard. There's, I think Kevin O'Brien is one of the few dedicated reporters in the county. You've got Wassapilot, but it's online and it's hard to get that hard copy. And there were, the other issue was transportation funding, and we adopted that resolution asking the legislature to look at transportation funding. With gas tax indexing was suspended in 2006, and we really haven't kept pace with inflation. We passed a constitutional amendment prohibiting the rating of the transportation fund, but the transportation fund's been rating the general purpose revenue fund, and that's not sustainable on a long-term basis. So if we want to continue to be underfunded on our county highways through the general transportation, for the funding program. We need to make sure that there's money so that we don't fall farther behind.
Others that want to weigh in? Candace? Lance?
You guys did a great job covering it.
All right. Any other discussion on the WCA Legislative Conference? All right. We have a executive committee meeting scheduled for the 19th to discuss the administrator's appraisal. And so that will be our next meeting. And also committee members are asked to bring ideas for future discussion. So with that, we are down to item number 8. What is your pleasure? Nobody wants to leave? All right. Vice Chair Dickinson with a motion, Supervisor Boots with a second to adjourn. All those in favor of adjournment signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. We stand adjourned.